back to Lincoln's Creations and Rentals. I know it's been a long time since I posted a video, but I'm excited about this entertainment center I'm going to build custom for my family room. My current entertainment center is bowing quite a bit. I've got a slightly heavier TV. It's not made out of the best materials. It was probably a $99 Walmart special that came with bookshelves and other things, but I'm really looking forward to replacing and putting something in there that I've custom built. So right now I'm going to sort of stop the video and show you how I went about designing the entertainment center itself, what I wanted to use it for, some of the measurements I cooked up in my head, and then we'll go from there as to showing you exactly what I'm doing. So thanks for joining me. The next segment will be again my design, and then we'll get into what it looks like and how I built it. Thanks. So here's my first shot at the design for the entertainment center. The entire thing was basically surrounded on making sure I had about 9.5-inch height for a VHS or DVD, primarily because I wanted to make sure I had enough height for some of the bigger Disney DVDs that we have in our collection, and I wanted at least 2 rows. In addition to that, since we have hundreds of VHS tapes, I had made a plan to make sure that I could fit about 100 in each bay. So that means where I ended up with that is roughly, they're about 1 inch wide a piece, and each of these compartments is almost 26 inches wide. That means I can fit about 25 wide, and they're about 4 to 5 inches deep. So, especially the Disney ones, which are a little bit deeper, the Disney DVDs. So the entire shelf depth is, as you can see over here, I had 22, and I actually ended up changing that and making it closer to 23. So that means I can fit 4 rows of 25 VHS tapes and or DVDs in each one of these bays. So I could fit 400 in here, but I wanted to save one of the bays for my DVD VHS combo unit and any other peripherals or other things I had. So where I ended up further on in my design plans is here, where you can see I've now got, I think it's a 56-inch top, so it hangs over a little bit on each side. It's a 54-inch bottom, as you can see right here. I've got 9.5 on the first lower shelf and closer to 10. So 9.5 and change, just so I can embed it a little bit into the top up here. And that gives me another shelf over here. We're going to have 2 compartments where I can have a sound bar or something else. So those are my rough dimensions. And then I started trying to plot out what I would need for cut sheets and how much it would take. So with that in mind, I didn't necessarily do cut sheets by hand. I use something called Cut List Optimizer. I'll put a link to it in the description, and I'll do another video later on how I use that to decide what cuts to make. It's a great tool because you can actually put in the which direction you want the grain going, and that way you can truly decide how the grain sets up on some of your main pieces. So those are my basic design ideas. Wanted to give you guys a heads up, and we're going to go right into the build. So now that you guys know how I designed this entertainment center, I'm real excited to show you all the cuts I've made and sort of, my vision. So I'm going to grab the phone, switch the camera around, and show you guys how I've laid out the top of this. I'm using a slight herringbone pattern. I'm not doing consistent repeating of the herringbone pattern because that's just too many cuts, too many pieces, too complicated for me. But this is a little simpler, a little more organized for me, and I'm sort of excited to be doing it. So let me turn the camera on and show you what I'm talking about. So this is the pattern I'm talking about. I've got it roughly laid out here, and I'll eventually cut off all the edges that I don't necessarily need. But this will cover roughly a 2 foot by 4 foot, actually I think it's 2 by almost 5 foot top of the entertainment center. So this thing's gonna be pretty heavy. These are all roughly 1 inch thick slices of plywood, and as you can see, there's a couple differentiations of color in there. Some of these that are a little yellower. Actually, I think I have them every 4. That's actually going to be some sort of the common plywood boards that I had, and all the other lighter ones are the red or the oak plywood that I'm actually using for the rest of the build. So these are all the pieces I've got together. I'm going to get the camera going, and we're going to start gluing them up and leveling them out. And then when it's all said and done, they're all glued together and the top is solid, we'll start sanding it down and then cut it down to size. So I'll set the camera up and we'll start assembling. So I'm actually going to be working a little off screen as I grab the pieces. The only thing I've done so far is nailed the first two main pieces together on the end. And what I'm going to do is actually grab some wood glue and just start gluing everything into place based on those first two. So I'm going to make sure I've got my little surface here. I've got some garbage in there. Put my nailer away and grab the first couple of pieces. Like I said, I've got these sort of pre-nailed together. So I'm going to line them up. I've got a couple of marks on the top of here for roughly the 45-degree angle that I want to be going at. I'm going to try and line these up. Grab the other piece. And this is roughly going to be my starting point. And everything else will work off here. So I'm going to start grabbing pieces and gluing stuff together. And I'll give you guys a time lapse of how it goes. I'm actually going to let this first batch sort of set up and dry, and then rather than having to clamp every piece every time and using glue through the whole thing, I'm actually going to grab my nailer and start nailing them in one at a time after these ones set up. That should be a lot quicker, a lot easier, a lot less glue to sand off later and to wipe off later, excess later, and I think it should hold just as well. And again, then I don't have to sit here gluing one piece at a time, reclamping, holding everything together. Hopefully the nailer, maybe with a little bit of glue, will help keep everything in place and straight. So that's most likely what I'm going to do. So I'll come back a little bit later when this is all set up. The first round is dry and set up. So at least a couple hours, maybe tomorrow. So we spent a couple of hours gluing all these pieces together. As you can see, This is all of it. It's all the rest of the oak plywood that I had, and some extra pieces I had of pine. It is actually sitting on a board of oak, as you can see right here. And this is going to be sort of the base to the top here. I'll have to take some time to glue and screw this into place right where I need it, about center. And then I will be shaving off all of the excess. So that's what we've got as our design right now, just to give you guys an idea. When I get it glued down, and maybe when I get it trimmed off, the next thing I'll have to do will be to sand and start assembling the rest of it. So that's the main piece right now. And I think sending all of these ridges and stuff that you can see in here down. That's pretty flat there, but you've got some over here. Trying my best to get this flat is what I'm going to struggle with probably the most. So just so you guys, that's what we've got to go with. I don't have in-house a 24-inch planer, and I am a little bit afraid of putting it through a planer to begin with, because I am afraid too much of this might chip off, and I'm just worried about that. So I may have to hit it up with a belt sander, random orbital sander, basically everything I've got. So when I get it all lined up, maybe I'll take a video of me chopping off the sides, and we'll go from there. So guys, I'm back in the shop. I had everything pre-assembled outside just to get an idea of what it looked like. Done a few more things off camera that I wanted to show you guys. I realized that it was going to be a little flimsy with just the pocket screws, and I'm not sure I want to do a first try with dowels this time around with something like this. I'd rather play with them on another project rather than something quite this big, because I don't want to mess it up. But with that being stated, I did grab a couple of triangles, cut a couple small triangles, and these are going to be placed in each of the corners behind the unit to give it a little more rigidity, a little more stiffness for moving it around and putting it where I want it in the house. I also actually created some legs, so I was really struggling as to what I wanted to do for feet or legs or something like that. This is already taller than the one I have. I didn't want it to be very that much taller. I don't really want to be able to fit a vacuum under it or anything like that. But one of the big issues I had with my last unit is that it tended to bow in the middle. There was no, well, there was a support underneath it, but it really wasn't very good to hold up the middle of the entertainment center. So what I've come up with these are going to be my legs. They're just two pieces of plywood glued together. I've got a couple 30-degree angles on there, and I'm going to put 3 of these down at the bottom of that entertainment center. So I'll have one on each side and one in the middle to hold the weight in the middle. Since I've got the divider in the middle, that should easily work to help keep any bowing issues happen, because all the same pressure that's on here will be the same as it's on the outside legs. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think this is a nice little design. Nothing fancy, just like I said, a couple 30-degree cuts along the table saw and a couple 30-degree cuts on the miter saw. So these are roughly 23 inches a piece from end to end, so they will fit directly, basically from end to end on the bottom of my unit. So unfortunately, I do have a couple of pocket screws on the bottom that these are going to cover up. So when I go to assemble it, I'll have to build the entire thing first before putting the legs on. I may glue them on, I may tack them on with a nailer. I don't think I'll put any screws through them, although that might work as well. But I don't really, I want as few holes as possible in this unit so it looks nice. So I may just do a couple of tacked nails and some glue to hold it in place. And once it's there, it won't be going anywhere. So I really like the way this idea turned out. I think it'll definitely help it last longer. And right now, I actually borrowed a friend of mine's. He's got a Craig jig for pre-drilling the holes for adjustable shelving. So what I'm going to do right now is grab that tool that he's got for me, pick a couple of spots. I know for this unit specifically, I need a hole right at about 9.5 inches. That's going to be roughly halfway up for me, which will be a great halfway point for the VHS steps I'm trying to fit in here. And then I need another one, at least one more somewhere halfway between. I think it's actually at about 14.5 inches. And I think this jig has everything an inch off center. So with that in mind, I'll probably have to do 2 full sets of this. One that runs right to that 9.5 inch mark, and one that runs to the other mark that I need. If it's right at 14 or 15, if it's on the 1/2 inch, I'm okay, but if it's not, I may have to tweak it up and down. So I'm going to start marking these sideboards and doing that, and I'll show you a little bit of that as we go. So I've got all my pieces laid out here. I've got my legs over there, the bottom, my 3 shelves laid out in front of me here, just half off screen there. I've got my top flipped upside down, and I'm getting ready to reassemble the entire thing, make sure everything is in the right place, everything fits properly, and sort of dry fit it one last time. And then I will go from there into knocking down anything else that might need to be touch sanded real quick before I get into staining. So I'm going to start reassembling it right now, and I'll come back after the staining's all done, and we're ready for the final picture. Please subscribe by hitting the icon, the bottom left portion of the screen, and check out some of my other videos.